Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, guys, there's so much going on right now geopolitically. It's incredible, and I don't want to be. Uh, it's not my intention to stir negativity or fear, but yet when we look at what's going on right now, you gotta just call it for what it is, and what it is very disconcerting. It's so obvious to me that we are seeing everything that has to be done in the preparatory stages leading up to what would become more than likely a global war. As we look at what's going on, I've shared with you guys, I'm a student of history, especially military history. I guess maybe it's in my blood. I'm actually like the first male that hasn't been in military service in my family. And there's been so many career military people in going back through my roots, and my family tree. And what is so clearly happening here is all the chess pieces are being put into place. Everything is being put into place. And this doesn't mean that we are looking at imminent war, although we could see that there's a lot of hot spots where it can break out. And what's going on too is this is much, much bigger. This feels like a buildup like what we saw leading into World War I and World War II. And these things, these things can be set off with just simply having a driver make a wrong turn, quote unquote, and going down the wrong road and, ending up, with an assassination that we saw happen in World War I that triggered, the big war to end all wars, right? But it wasn't the war that ended all wars. And World War II won't be the war that ends all wars. We've seen nonstop wars since World War II. And especially since 2001. It's just ramped up to a whole different level with all the different small wars. But now things are moving and being placed on a global scale that can only bring a lot of apprehension to those that are truly awake. Much of this world is asleep. As we've talked about before, when we're talking zombie movies, what they're really talking about is the mass of the population out there that doesn't have a clue. They're not awake. They don't have a clue. They just listen to CNN, Fox, or MSNBC when they do that. And, perhaps they're blissfully unaware. Or perhaps they're totally unprepared for what is coming. And we can see it. Now, we don't want to manifest anything. We understand the power of intent, the power of attention. When we give something attention, there's power in that. But at the same time, you don't want to be caught with your pants down. And it's good to know. It's good to understand what's going on. It's good to understand what could potentially be planned or what could happen by accident as well. So over here, we have India moving tanks and troops to Rajasthan-Punjab borders. This so says by a report. As you see over here, the Indian Army has started a major mobilization of military tanks and deployed troops along the international border in Rajasthan and in Punjab. Times of India reported on Monday armored formations from Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh were deployed to the border outposts, the report said. Development comes amid reports of clashes between Pakistani and Indian forces along the line of control. Tensions between Pakistan and India rose after Indian planes violated Pakistani airspace and released their payload inside Pakistan's territory last month. In response, Pakistan shot down 2 Indian planes in Kashmir. One plane crashed into the Kohi Rada sector of Azad Kashmir, while one crashed into the Indian-administered Kashmir Bugam area. The pilot of the Indian Air Force, identified as Abhinandan, was also taken into custody. However, he was released as a gesture of peace. So we have these troops, these tanks, moving to the borders. We have over here Indian radars detect large UAV and 4 Paki F-16s close to border. And then we see over here, they force the F-16s to retreat into their own airspace. This is out of Sputnik News. And so the IAF, the Indian Air Force, scrambled Su-30 MKIs and Mirage 2000 jets to intercept Pakistani warplanes, forcing them to return to their airspace immediately. So we see that, you know, the provocation is right there. Things could happen at a moment's notice. Over here out of Sputnik, Pakistani military says it's immaterial whether the F-16 was used in India's clash, and that was back in February. We see India activating strategic ITBP command from JK to counter Chinese buildup. Northwest frontier of the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, tasked to guard the 3,488-kilometer-long Sino-India border in peace times, is headed by an Inspector General, IG, of police rank officer, which is equivalent to a Major General. And so, as we see what's going on here, tensions are ramping up, and they're ramping up in many different ways. So it's very confusing at first when we look at some of this, and we think of alliances. And of course, we had the BRICS alliance, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which is an economic alliance. However, you know, there are tensions in all alliances. As we've seen now, Brazil apparently jumped on board an alliance with potentially Colombia and the United States, which could end up acting against Russia and China and others in Venezuela. You know, there's the potential for that right there. India and China, they were working together a little bit. We saw some cooperation with some joint military ventures earlier, about 3 months ago, 2-3 months ago. And but on the whole, there's always been tensions there. There's disputed area, as we know, with Kashmir and India and Pakistan. You know, so who's going to fall on whose side? And you know, it's interesting to watch all these things happen. You know, China and Pakistan, you know, as far as the alliance there. The potential for global war, I don't think, in my personal humble opinion, has been this great since World War II, when we look at what's going on. India's space launch, 1 rocket, 29 satellites, 3 orbits. The Indian Space Agency plans domestic and foreign satellites in 3 orbits on a single flight. There's a lot of changes going on in the world, and you know, the United States has dominated, along with the Soviet Union, up to the point of the Soviet Union's breaking down into smaller components, dominated the world stage. And then after the fall of the Soviet Union, the U.S. has been left alone. But China and India are rising powers in many ways. And you know, many experts will tell you that it's just a short matter of time before China's dominant. And it won't be long after China's dominant that India will actually be the dominant power. So you have, you know, you have these countries, these spheres of influence that are going to have to really work together if we're not going to have any sort of conflict. But unfortunately, we have powers that be that always find conflict to be profitable. And that's really part of the bottom line. And, you know, there's more going on than meets the eye. And this is about misinformation that is endangering India's election. Political parties are spreading propaganda about their opponents to gain votes, and it's working. And that's something that's been done everywhere. And that's something that's going on in droves all over, everywhere we look. And, you know, in the United States, if you're not a Democrat or a Republican, it's much more difficult to get, you know, to actually have a chance at winning a election. And, you know, this is part of what's going on. And part of the problem is now, you know, fake news, misinformation, fake news, that term, you know what? that term is going to be used against us. It's going to be used against us in order to take away free speech, and it is already happening. Meanwhile, India is about to hold the biggest election in their history. India's general elections, the biggest democratic exercise in the world. Is it really? Is it really? Just saying. You know, facial recognition is already in India. So they're high-tech in some ways. And in China, you know, we're talking about the social credit scores. That's scary. That's super scary. So there's going to be a big election. Will it change things? Will it get things going in any particular way? Well, if the powers that be have their way, just think about what would be the most contentious and divisive outcome, and that's probably what's going to happen. More than likely. That's how they roll. And so over here, Facebook takes down Pakistan military-linked pages targeting India ahead of the Lok Sabha polls. 10 days before the first phase of polling for the 2019 general elections, Facebook on Monday announced that removed and taken down multiple pages, groups, and/or accounts for violating the company's policies on coordinated inauthentic behavior or spam, including 103 such accounts on Facebook and Instagram that originated in Pakistan. These accounts Facebook added were linked to individuals working for the publicity division of Pakistan's military establishment. And then we see over here as well, Facebook removes fake accounts tied to Indian political parties and Pakistan's military. And it's just interesting seeing the wars that are going on right now on so many different levels, and even the wars that are going on without outright conflict, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes right now. It's incredible. It's really incredible the times that we live in right now. There is so much going on. So much geopolitically. This is an incredibly volatile time in history. And, you know, all this is happening while we see things in the sky we've never seen before in our lifetimes, while we see Earth changes that are apparently unprecedented, at least in the last 5,000 years. You know, it's incredible as we're uncovering all these mysteries around us, and the geopolitical world is unraveling, and it's amazing the timing of all this. It really, really is. But this, again, my friends, this is the time of the apocalypse. This is the time of the great unveiling. All will be revealed, and this is part of it. This is part of it. The emperor has no clothes, and we see that. So, my friends, as always, thumbs up, support the channel. Please do subscribe, click the bell, get all notifications, both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts, the original, and then also number 2. And as always, I look forward to your comments. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Let's work on this together. Let's illuminate each other. And let's work on our unity, even though the world is apparently heading to just more everlasting conflict and disunity. We can turn the tide if we work together. As always, my friends, God bless and namaste.